Hey everyone, I'm Katherine Arthur, your friendly and hopefully favorite speech language pathologist, and welcome back to Fluent and Fearless. This is a podcast where we show you how to turn confusing, stressful communication moments into something you can actually feel good about. It's the podcast where you learn how to get your point across. And today our guest is someone who is definitely a clear and confident communicator, someone who is absolutely fluent and fearless, and that's my wonderful friend, Dr. Aubrey Snyder. Hey, Dr. Aubrey.
Hi, thanks for having me.
It's been a while. We haven't chatted lately, but I know that our audience is just going to love to hear from you because this is what I'm going to tell them, that you, Dr. Snyder, are someone whose work is transforming the way that women connect, heal, and see themselves. Aubrey is the founder of Her Circle, the Friendship Hub, and this is a growing community designed to help women build genuine friendships, to reclaim their identity beyond traditional roles, and to create space where they can show up exactly as they are. Dr. Snyder is passionate about helping women untangle who they are from who they've been told to be, helping women navigate rest without guilt, and helping women find belonging in a world that often leaves them feeling isolated or overwhelmed. And through Her Circle, Dr. Snyder creates peer-led spaces that are compassionate, judgment-free, and grounded in the belief that women deserve deep connection and emotional safety. So today we're going to dive into everything from redefining identity to the misconceptions about female friendship to how women can nurture meaningful connection even when they're busy, burned out, or introverted. So please welcome Dr. Aubrey Snyder, the heart behind Her Circle, and an advocate for women living life on their own terms. Hello, Dr. Snyder.
Hello, thank you. That is an awesome introduction.
Well,
Hopefully, I can live up to those expectations.
So we're going to dive into Her Circle and everything that goes along with it. But before we do, I want to take just a moment to remind our listeners that I do have a free offer for them, and we're going to talk about that at the end of our podcast. Now, Dr. Snyder, you have a PhD in metaphysical humanistic science. I say that's pretty awesome. Can you explain what that means?
Yeah, so it's a field that blends the study of consciousness, human potential, and metaphysical principles. Exactly the kind of framework that enriches a community built on empowerment, authenticity, and growth. By weaving metaphysical insights with humanistic values, Her Circle is intentionally shaped to nurture resilience, deepen personal clarity, and celebrate the unique power each woman carries. That is why I felt like getting this doctorate would really help enhance Her Circle and what I can give to our members.
So it sounds like that kind of helped you form your underlying beliefs of what Her Circle should be. So is that how Her Circle got started?
Actually, it was on a much more personal level that I had started Her Circle. I live in Franklin, Tennessee. I've been here. Well, when I started Her Circle, it was about 8 years, and I was really just having a hard time getting those really lifelong connections that I've had other places I lived. And I got on our local page and just basically asked for friends and was getting referrals to different groups. And it was just not feeling like it was the same mission I really had or what I wanted. So I decided to start my group, and it started out small. And as it started to develop, and I realized there was all of these women who were just longing for the same connections that I couldn't find, that I really thought, hey, this is something that's a big need, and just decided to start Her Circle, the Friendship Hub. And through that, I started my doctorate, and they just really kind of connected each other, and it just felt like things were falling into place.
And that's funny how life can sometimes we start from one point and we end up somewhere where we didn't expect to be. So,
Exactly.
yeah, exactly. So is Her Circle only in Franklin, Tennessee?
It is not. So we have a few new branches. We actually have a chapter in Milwaukee. We are starting a chapter in North Atlanta, and then we have a few in the suburbs of Nashville here in Tennessee. And we're just starting to reach out. I've been talking to a woman in Colorado, and we're going to start a chapter in Denver. So it's really exciting how this has really started to just take off and branch out.
Really, exactly. So we start with one little seed and it's really just grown. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
absolutely.
And it's kind of like being fearless, like we talk about on our show. And I know that your philosophy is that part of being fearless is embracing change. So, what does it mean to explore your identity outside of traditional roles for women? And how did you begin doing that for yourself?
Exploring your identity outside of traditional roles means giving yourself permission to exist as more than the titles you've been handed: mother, partner, employee, caregiver, achiever, the one who holds everything together. Those roles can be meaningful, of course, but they can also become all consuming, that you forget you're a person outside of who you are for other people. For me, the process started when I realized that my entire self worth was tied to what I produced, who I supported, and how well I kept all the plates spinning. I didn't actually know what I enjoyed just for me, or what lit me up, or how I wanted to grow as an individual. That was like a big wake up call.
So, I'm sure that was quite a wake up call. What did you do next?
I had to just kind of sit down and start asking myself really simple questions like, what do I love when no one is around? What are the things I miss doing? What makes me curious? What feels like mine? Not my family's, not my workplaces, not society's, just something that is my identity. Leaning into that curiosity was really like the game changer for me. Instead of trying to reinvent myself overnight, I started following small sparks, reading books I wanted to read, creating her circle, and creating events that were just things that I wanted to do, and allowing myself to take up space in ways that weren't tied to being useful. And honestly, that's part of why her circle exists. Women deserve spaces where they're not just defined by what they do, but who they're becoming. A place where identity isn't fixed, it's explored, expanded, questioned, and celebrated. The more I leaned into that, the more I realized identity isn't something you just figure out, it's something you actively live into with curiosity, compassion, and with community.
Right. So it sounds like curiosity was a driving factor for this. Was there a moment when you realized you were living according to expectations that didn't fully belong to you?
Oh, absolutely. I think for most of my life, I carried around this internal checklist of what I was supposed to accomplish at certain stages. I had painted this picture of the milestones I thought I needed to hit. And for a long time, I didn't question where those expectations even came from. About 3 years ago, I realized I wasn't the only one living that way. And that realization was both comforting and exhausting. It wasn't a lightning bolt epiphany, but more of a quiet moment of clarity. I wanted to set my own guidelines for how I live. And honestly, it's something I still work on every day.
Right. So how do you help women untangle who they are from who they've been told they should be?
It's a tough one because, everyone's kind of set in these long lasting habits. So I help women untangle who they are from who they've been told to be by giving them permission to show up as themselves and genuinely accepting themselves as they are. I also try to model that in my own life. For example, when someone apologizes for something they don't need to apologize for, I always gently remind them that they don't owe anyone an apology for simply existing or having needs. I try to live the examples I hope they'll see in themselves.
Yeah, and I think you've hit on something really important that women carry around a lot of guilt, when we don't need to. Now, you're passionate, Dr. Snyder, about normalizing rest. So, why do you think rest still feels so radical, especially for women?
I think it goes back to societal expectations and the pressure we all feel to be this superwoman who can do everything and care for everyone. And that quickly becomes our identity. By allowing time to rest, you learn to prioritize what is most important, but it also allows you to show up better for everybody.
Yeah, and I can relate to that because I fell victim to that superwoman myth that we as women could and we should do it all. And if we didn't live up to that image of perfection, there was something wrong with us. So I'd say that's an image that we absolutely, absolutely need to smash. And let's start with what we can do for ourselves as women without feeling guilty, just resting and unwinding. Now, Dr. Snyder, you're a proponent of guilt-free rest, and that sounds like something I would be totally on board with. But what does guilt-free rest actually look like in the real world, in real life, and not the Instagram version?
Boy, I wish we could just get rid of social media sometimes because what it
Yeah.
has done to our expectations. But guilt-free rest in real life looks like a lot less glamorous than what you see on Instagram. It's not spa days or perfect cozy setups, although I like both. It's just giving
Sure.
yourself permission to pause without apologizing for it. It might be stepping away from your to-do list for 20 minutes, eating lunch without multitasking, taking a quiet walk, or simply sitting in your car before going inside because you need a moment to breathe. It's rest that's imperfect, unfiltered, and often very small, but chosen with intention, not shame. It's letting yourself recharge because you're human, not because you've earned it.
So, how do you respond to women who say that they don't have time to rest?
I hear this every single day. Um, and my first response is always, I get it. Most of us are carrying an invisible load, emotional labor, caregiving, managing households, supporting relationships, building careers. It can genuinely feel like there's no room to breathe, let alone rest. But here's what I gently remind them: rest isn't a luxury, it's data. If your body and mind are asking for rest, that's information about your limits, your needs, and the places you've been overextending yourself. I also challenge the belief behind the statement. When a woman says she doesn't have time to rest, what she often means is, I don't believe I'm allowed to rest, or I don't want to let someone down. We've been conditioned to see rest as the reward at the end of productivity instead of a requirement for our well being. But the truth is, rest is productivity. It makes you clearer, kinder, more present, and more powerful.
Right. So, how does her circle fit into all of this?
In her circle, we talk about rest as an act of reclamation. When you rest, you're saying, my worth is not defined by my output. My needs matter just as much as everyone else's. I'm a human being, not a machine. I think every woman needs to hear that last one. So when a woman tells me she doesn't have time to rest, I don't argue with her schedule. I speak to her sense of permission. I ask her to start with the smallest version of rest: one quiet moment, one deep breath, one boundary, one thing she can put off until tomorrow, because rest doesn't have to be dramatic to be transformative. And what we see time and time again in her circle is that when women open the door even a tiny bit, rest finds its way in and everything begins to shift.
And that does sound very transformative. What's one small way someone can begin practicing rest without feeling like they have to overhaul their entire life?
So you start with something small. And I think that's what's hard for people is it doesn't have to be really big. It can be 1 minute of breath work before you get out of your car. Put your phone down while you're drinking your coffee. Don't multitask and just be still with your cup of coffee, sitting down for 5 minutes at the end of the day with no agenda. Rest doesn't have to look like a weekend getaway. It just begins with giving yourself permission to pause, even briefly, and letting that be enough for today.
And I've been trying that for myself because you know me, I'm a very type A personality. It's just I have to be doing something all the time. And if I'm multitasking, that's even better. But I've been taking your advice on this, and it really, really does help. So I'm going to encourage our listeners to just give that a try, and they'll see how transformative that can be. And while they're doing that, I'm going to take a moment to talk about self reflection and inner validation with you, Dr. Snyder, and how women can move forward. So, are there questions that you encourage women to ask themselves when they feel stuck or disconnected?
Absolutely. When a woman feels stuck or disconnected, I like to bring her back to herself with a few grounding questions. A few of those questions are: what do I need right now, physically, emotionally, or mentally? What part of me feels unheard or unsupported? If I wasn't worried about disappointing anyone, what would I choose for myself? What is one small thing that could make me feel more like myself today? And I think the most important one out of all these questions is, where am I saying yes when I really want to say no? Women really get stuck in this pattern of saying yes for things when they really need to or have boundaries and say no to things.
Yeah, and I am guilty of that. But I'm learning. I am very much learning how to say no. And you know what? You feel like a much happier and healthier person when you can do that for yourself.
No, for sure. I mean, that's where we really talk about boundaries and how we set those. And it's really kind of freeing once you get rid of that expectation that you have to please everyone and start to say no when it suits you.
Yeah, and I would agree 100,000% if there is such a thing. So the things that you mentioned earlier, Dr. Snyder, those are some good ways for a woman to feel more connected to herself and more importantly to her inner being. But what about feeling connected to other women? I think friendships are important, and I obviously think you do too. But I think as women, we forget that sometimes. So what makes female friendships uniquely powerful in shaping how we see ourselves?
So I have to say, I think, we're starting a movement of women coming back to those friendships as we age and realizing how important they are, because female friendships have a way of acting like mirrors and anchors at the same time. There's something uniquely powerful about being seen by another woman who understands your emotional language, your lived experience, and the invisible load you carry, often without you needing to explain it. In her circle, we see this like every single day. When women gather without judgment or expectation, they start to reflect back each other's strengths, soften each other's self criticism, and remind one another of who they were before the world told them who to be. Female friendships shape how we see ourselves because they offer something rare, a safe connection, honest reflection, and genuine belonging. When a woman is witnessed, not fixed, not evaluated, just witnessed, she starts to reconnect with parts of herself she may have forgotten. That's the power we build with her circle. Women reminding women of their worth simply by showing up as themselves.
And that really is powerful. Dr. Snyder, what would you say to a woman who feels lonely or disconnected? I mean, there's a lot of us out there.
I do hear that a lot. I'll have members reach out to me, which I think is very bold for a woman to say, I feel lonely. Like I need someone. And a lot of most of the time I will start with just letting them know they're not alone. More women feel lonely than you'd ever guess. We all have our own struggles. And second, connection doesn't start with finding a group. It starts with finding one person you feel safe with. And if that feels too big, start with community spaces like her circle where you can show up quietly until you feel ready to engage. There's no wrong way to come home to yourself.
So, as far as her circle goes, how does your group create a sense of safety, as you mentioned earlier, where women feel free to show up as who they truly are?
I think the format in her circle is unique because it is a member driven group. So all of our events are hosted by members. And I think in a way that kind of allows women to come in with more intention and not instruction. We're not a hierarchy. So in her circle, we set the tone from the moment a woman walks in. You don't have to perform, you don't have to impress. You don't even have to participate. You can just be there and observe, and we're going to accept you. There's no therapy, although a lot of times some of our events become like therapy because women are finding what they need. We also hold a few gentle guidelines that protect our space. No unsolicited advice, no fixing, no judgment, no comparison. And I take those rules really seriously. We don't, want anyone to ever feel like they don't belong. And those simple boundaries free women to speak honestly or to sit quietly if that's what they need. Both are welcome. Most of all, we model what we hope others will feel. We show up with openness, take off our roles, and let ourselves be human. When women see that type of authenticity, it gives them permission to exhale and do the same. That's where safety comes from, being seen, accepted, and allowed to just be.
I like that. So, her circle is a judgment-free zone. I think that there's a lot of misconceptions about how women relate to each other, that we're very judgy, the whole mean girls type of culture that supposedly influences our relationships with each other. Or that's the thought anyway. And we know that's not true. So, what misconceptions about female friendship, Dr. Snyder, do you think we need to unlearn?
Wow. There are so many myths that we've been handed about women and friendship, and most of them are completely untrue. I think the biggest ones we need to unlearn are these. The first one would be the myth that women are naturally competitive or catty. This idea has been pushed on us for decades. And honestly, it's just not what I see in real life. When women feel safe, supported, and not judged, they're unbelievably generous with each other. They cheer, they comfort, they lift. Competition is not our default, connection is. The second myth that I see is that real friendship has to look a certain way. Some women think they need to have a big group, or they need to talk every day, or they must have a best friend dynamic to count. None of that is true. Friendship can be small, quiet, seasonal, deep, or delightfully simple. There is not a template or a guidebook for how a friendship needs to look. The third one would be the myth that friendship should be effortless. There is no relationship in the world that is worth it that you don't put any effort in. That's just not the way relationships work. You know, you hear that phrase, if it's meant to be, it'll be easy. And it sets us up for disappointment. The truth is, friendships take nurturing, not heavy labor, but intention, a text, a shared moment, a check in. Effort doesn't mean something is wrong, it just means that you care. The fourth myth that other women are too much or not enough. We hear this so much. You know, when we have gatherings, a woman would be like, oh, well, I'm a lot to handle. Well, that's just untrue. We absorb so many narratives about the right kind of woman to be friends with. Too emotional, too ambitious, too introverted, too loud. It's endless. Her circle exists to rewrite that. You are the right kind of woman when you are allowed to show up as yourself. Another myth that adult friendships should mirror childhood ones. Life is different now. I mean, you have different roles, you have jobs, kids, partners, schedules, exhaustion. Adult friendship isn't about constant closeness, it's about consistent care. We have to let go of the idea that time apart means the bond is weak. Women don't forget each other that easily. And at the heart of all of this, I think the biggest myth is that women somehow are hard to be friends with. They're not. They just need spaces where they feel safe enough to be human. And that's what her circle is about, unlearning the noise and remembering that connection is natural when women are given room to just be themselves.
So, what you're saying, Dr. Snyder, is that women need to start living life on their own terms. And I definitely would agree with that. What does defining life on your own terms look like in practice and not just philosophically?
Defining life on your own terms shows up in the small everyday choices, not just big dramatic changes. It looks like noticing what drains you and what fuels you, and then adjusting accordingly. It's saying no, and let me repeat that, saying no to things that don't align with your values, even if you've always said yes. It's choosing friendships that feel supportive, carving out times for things that matter to you, and letting yourself evolve without asking for permission. In practice, it's less about reinventing your whole life and more about choosing what feels true for you consistently, one decision at a time.
So, what has this work taught you about success that you didn't know before?
I can be fairly type A. And so, what this has taught me is that success is not defined in a textbook way. Success can be in small things. Like I have thrown events where I expected 60 people and 25 had shown up. And my first thought would be, oh, this is failure. But then those 25 women who showed up at that event come back to me and they tell me about how that event, you know, changed them or what it meant to them or the connections they met. So success for me has now defined as what value have I given by that action. So what I'm learning is success isn't measured by quantity, but the quality of what you're out or what you're putting out, if that makes sense.
It does.
And so it's really helped me grow not only with her circle, but just as a person of letting go of those expectations and realizing success can be on a very much smaller scale and still be just as meaningful.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. If a listener is feeling burned out, disconnected, or unsure of who they are right now, what's one loving first step that you would encourage her to take?
First, I would tell her she's not alone. And I would tell her to start with the smallest possible act of honesty with herself, not a big life change, not a 5-step plan, just one moment of truth. Maybe it's admitting I'm not okay, or I'm exhausted, or I miss connection. I mean, honestly, I do that too. I've started to feel overwhelmed with taking on so much and reached out to my closest friends and said, I need help. And that tiny moment of honesty is the doorway back to yourself. From there, give yourself permission to want more, either more rest, more support, more joy, more community. Women often wait until they have it all figured out before reaching out, but you don't have to. You're allowed to show up messy, unsure, and in progress. And if she can take one brave step after that, I'd encourage her to find a space where she feels seen, whether that's her circle or another community where she doesn't have to perform. Being witnessed by other women who get it can gently remind you who you are when you've forgotten. Sometimes the first step toward finding yourself is simply not doing it alone.
So, what about those of us who maybe feel a little socially awkward or introverted? Like myself, I'll admit it. How would you encourage an introvert to show up and make friends?
First, I have to say we have a lot of introverts in our Her Circle group. And I hear it all the time. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with being introverted. I myself am not, but I do understand you don't need to become someone else to form meaningful friendships. In fact, introverts often make the most thoughtful, loyal, intentional friends. What I encourage is this: start small and start softly. You don't have to walk into a room and become the life of the party. You just have to give yourself the chance to be present. That's it. Showing up doesn't always mean talking a lot. It can mean listening, observing, or finding one person to connect with who can feel safe to you. At Her Circle, we design our gatherings with introverts in mind. There's no pressure, no forced sharing, no performing your personality. You can ease in at your own pace. And that's, we have tons of different events, and that's why some are big and some are very intimate. And the beautiful thing is the room, meets you where you're at. I also remind introverts that friendship isn't built in grand gestures. It's built in tiny moments of courage. It's saying yes to one event, making eye contact and smiling at one person, allowing someone to sit next to you, joining one small conversation, following up with a simple, "It was nice to meet you." There's many easy, small things you can do that'll add up and hopefully not be too scary. And most importantly, I tell them this: you don't have to fit in to make friends. You just have to be willing to be seen slowly, gently, and at your own pace. Community doesn't ask you to be louder, it just asks you to be you. And you'd be surprised how many women are quietly waiting for someone exactly like you to sit beside.
And I think what you've outlined, Dr. Snyder, are some really important steps toward becoming truly fearless, like we encourage our listeners to do every week. And believe it or not, we're almost to the end of this episode of Fluent and Fearless already. We've been talking with Dr. Aubrey Snyder about her organization, Her Circle. And Dr. Snyder, before we wrap things up, what's the most important advice that you can give our listeners?
The most important advice I can offer is this: you are allowed to take up space in your own life. Your needs, your voice, your rest, and your growth matter. You don't have to earn permission to slow down, to ask for support, or to build friendships that genuinely nourish you. Start treating yourself with the same compassion you so freely give to everyone else, and watch how everything else shifts.
And compassion, as you know, is certainly something we could use a lot more of in this world today, especially for ourselves. And one more thing, Dr. Snyder, how can our listeners find out more about Her Circle?
So right now, Her Circle is in a few different cities in Tennessee and in Minnesota. We do have a website, which is hercirclethefriendshiphub.com. We are working on an app, which we hopefully will launch here in the next few weeks. And in the fall, we are hosting our first Her Circle Summit, which will encourage women, even if they're not members, to gather probably somewhere around Nashville, Tennessee. Hopefully, we're gauging for September, which we will have speakers and workshops and just a moment for women to gather together in a safe, fun community space.
Okay, and I think you're on social media too, right?
Yes, we have an Instagram and we have a national Facebook page, and then we have private groups for each of our chapters. And that would be at Her Circle, the Friendship Hub as well.
All right. Well, our guest today has been Dr. Aubrey Snyder of Her Circle, the Friendship Hub. Did I get that right, Aubrey?
You did?
Yes. And you're in Franklin, Tennessee, and I heard you've got a snowstorm coming up in a few days. What's up with that?
This is probably going to blow everyone's mind, especially here in Tennessee. It may be like a week after we can shovel ourselves out, but they're forecasting up to maybe about 11 inches between Friday evening and Saturday evening. So the world will shut down here in Tennessee.
Yeah, and I'm in Michigan, and for us, that's just a normal day.
No, we are already planning on going today and getting our milk and supplies because every single store will probably be sold out by Thursday.
Well, I wish you luck, and I hope that you at least own a snow shovel, or you probably will within the next day or two if they aren't sold out down there. So I wish you luck with all that snow. Make a
Thank you so
snowman.
much.
Yeah, hey, make a snowman. Send us a picture, okay?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, with that, Dr. Snyder, thank you so much for joining me today, and you'll come back again for a future episode, my fluent and fearless friend,
Oh, I
right?
would love to.
Yeah, I'd love to have you, and I know our listeners will love to hear from you again too. And I'd also like to remind our listeners that if you found this episode helpful, share it with every woman that you know and help her to find her voice, help her to feel more empowered by being her own true self so that she can become fluent and fearless. And listeners, if you've got any questions that you want me to cover on a future episode, send them my way because I really love hearing from you. And here's something else I want you to know. If you speak English as a second language and you're concerned about your pronunciation of American English, I'm here to help you. I want you to be fluent and fearless, and I know you can do it. Remember, working on your speech and pronunciation does not mean that your accent is a problem, not at all. It means that you value clear and confident communication, and it means that you're investing in yourself. And as we've learned today, what really counts is connecting with other people, building relationships, and showing the world who you are as a unique individual. So, whether you're looking to succeed in your career or just want to feel more confident in everyday conversations, or maybe both, accent modification can give you the advantage that you're looking for. So, if you're ready to explore accent modification, as I mentioned earlier in this episode, I have a free offer for you. Just visit my website at pronouncespeech.com. That's pronouncespeech.com. You'll find out how to book a free assessment with me, Katherine Arthur. No cost, no obligation. It's a low-key and conversational way to learn how you can benefit from accent modification. Again, the website, pronouncespeech.com, pronouncespeech.com. So with that, thanks again to our guest today, Dr. Aubrey Snyder, always fluent, always fearless.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we look forward to hearing from you again, Dr. Snyder. And with that, everyone get out there, turn that spark into a flame, and find out how fluent and fearless you can be. This is Katherine Arthur, your fluent and fearless leader. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to getting together with you again next time on Fluent and Fearless.